Good evening, dear students. Welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy, the Hindu Analysis. Today is 4th May 2024 and we have a few important news articles for today's discussion. So we'll start discussing all those important news articles. But before that, let's try to solve yesterday practice question, which is regarding inflation, especially demand pull inflation. When we study inflation, it is a general rise in the prices. So that is a simple definition of inflation. But when we talk about inflation, there are different types of inflation. Stagflation, disinflation or deflation, stagflation, demand pull inflation, cost push inflation. So there are different types of inflation. It is very important for you to understand what exactly these different types of inflation actually mean. However, if you look at the present state of Indian economy, we have been facing the cost push inflation. So the cost push inflation is because of increased prices of raw materials or increased prices of inputs. Remember that we are importing 85% of our energy requirements, or we are importing 85% of our fossil fuel requirements. Due to external factors, the fossil fuel prices increases. That also increases the production cost of the manufacturing units across the country. And that is how they can increase the costs or the input costs, and that will further lead to the cost push inflation. Now we have understood what exactly is the cost push inflation, but what is demand pull inflation? Demand pull inflation in the sense that imagine that 100 goods are produced in an economy and people have the excess money in their hands. The households have an excess amount of disposable income in their hands, and everyone start purchasing these goods. So therefore, people have a more money and they start purchasing the same amount of the goods. So that increases the prices because of the disposable income, increased disposable income, increased purchasing power of the people. That increases the demand for limited availability of the goods. So that is known as demand pull inflation. Now, among all these inflation categories, the correct answer for this question is option C. Why? Because there is an increase in the aggregate demand. So increase in the aggregate demand may be because of the fiscal stimulus package announced by the government, maybe because of increased employment opportunities, maybe because of government spending on welfare programs, infrastructure development programs. So all these projects would increase the aggregate demand in any economy. But demand has been increasing, but the supply of the goods not increasing. Supply remains same, but demand has been regularly or constantly increasing, and that creates this demand pull inflation. Right? So here there were brief definitions for both cost push inflation and also demand pull inflation. So when we talk about this cost push inflation, as I have already told you, that increased input costs will lead to the cost push inflation. One such example is increasing raw material cost, increasing the cost or prices of fossil fuels. So they increase the cost of production of goods and services, and then that will increase the cost push inflation in an economy. So when production cost rises and the producers pass the increased costs on to the consumers, and that could result in cost push inflation, and this cost push inflation is what we have been observing in the Indian economy right now. But on the other hand, our key concern is demand pull inflation. So the demand pull inflation is the demand for goods, existing goods and services increased significantly, but at the same time, even though the demand has been increasing, the amount of goods in the economy not increased. The supply of goods not increased, but demand has been increasing due to higher disposable income in the hands of the people. So this is the difference between demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. So please understand this. And today also we have one more practice question. So please answer this question in the comment section, and this is also a very important question frequently in news. So what is 9-dash line? I've given you 4 options. 1. A maritime boundary, so that is drawn by China to claim sovereignty over a vast portion of the South China Sea. Option B, a historical demarcation line indicating traditional fishing grounds in Southeast Asia. Option C, a boundary marker established by international consensus to delineate territorial waters in the Pacific Ocean. And option D, an imaginary lane used by navigators to indicate safe shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean. So please answer this question in the comment section, and I'll be providing you the correct answer in tomorrow's class. So without any delay, we'll discuss all important editorials and other important news articles. First important news article is the paradox of India's global rise and its regional decline. Now, if you can look at India's rise at the global level, there's no doubt that we can consider the present foreign policy as the golden era of Indian foreign policy. And at the same time, India has been proactively engaging itself with multilateral institutions and a number of other countries, whether bilateral, multilateral. On every arena, India has been rapidly expanding or emerging as a key player at the international level. But at the same time, we must agree that if you look at India's neighborhood, we have been facing a lot of challenges. And we have a complex and complicated neighborhood in India. So one such example is recent India's Maldives diplomatic row, or India-Maldives row. Because the current president of Maldives, when he was in opposition, he launched India Out campaign. And now he potentially capitalized on that disaffection among the people of Maldives towards India, and now he became the president of Maldives. And he further strengthened his relations with countries like China, which is considered as a regional rival for India. And at the same time, Maldives earlier used to have India first policy, but they do not have India first policy now, most probably after the President Mohammad Moiju's presidency. So therefore, we have been facing challenges with Maldives and even Sri Lanka also, and Pakistan. So therefore, we have a very complex neighborhood, and we can call it as a regional decline. So there are a number of factors that can be assumed or that can be linked with this regional decline of India, but on the other hand, the rise at the global level. Now, what are those factors which have been indicating the paradox in global rise and regional decline? Now, if you can understand the context of this editorial, so the author clearly saying that India has been witnessing a simultaneous global rise and at the same time a regional decline in power. So this is what the key or the crux of the article that the author has been trying to discuss here. So how India has been rising at the global level? We all knew that in the year 2023, India was the president of the G20 summit, and we have successfully conducted the G20 summit. Secondly, during the COVID-19 pandemic, India was the country which had provided vaccines to poor and underdeveloped countries under its ambitious Vaccine Maitri program. And at the same time, India has also been one of the most eligible country for the UNSC permanent membership. And at the same time, it is balancing its ties with both West and East. and it has been successful in facing the challenge of China. So all these factors have been indicating India's enormous rise at the global level in recent times. Okay, so if you look at India's absolute power, whether it is soft power or to some extent hard power, so there is a growing absolute power for India, and that is what we can observe in recent times. And at the same time, India has also been very active in participating several multilateral groupings. And in fact, India is very often invited as one of the guest country to these G7 summits. So that has been indicating India's overall role at the global level in addressing key challenges. So in fact, if you can understand that we have conducted the G20 Summit 2023, and at the same time, we are also part of the several multilateral groupings such as Quadrilateral Security Framework or Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. So that has been showcasing India's geopolitical significance on the global stage. So we are not just part of the Quad, but we are also part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO, and we are also part of the BRICS grouping. So therefore, India has been rising at the global level at a much faster pace. But on the other hand, we have been observing the regional decline of India. India was not able to maintain its relations with its neighbors and in the region. So there are several factors that have been contributing to this regional decline of India. So India's influence in South Asia has been gradually diminishing in recent times. Why? Because a comparative power loss vis-a-vis with China. So please understand, in South Asia, China has emerged as one of the rival, challenging India's traditional leadership role in the South Asian region. And in fact, Chinese overall presence in the Indian Ocean has significantly increased. Now China has emerged as a potential alternative for India in the region. So therefore, what these regional countries have been doing, the neighboring countries have been doing, so they are just balancing India's relations with China, and they are also very often using this China card against India. Since China has emerged as a potential alternative for India, so this provides an opportunity for India's regional neighbors to show the China card and at the same time deteriorate their relations with India. So they very often view India as a big brother but not elder brother. Because of enormous size of India, its military strength, economic strength, and the political stability. So because of all those reasons, they look India as a big brother but not an elder brother. And if you look at the SAARC as a grouping, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. So in fact, SAARC was influenced from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or it is also called as ASEAN. Now this Asian regional grouping is one of the most successful group. So it has enormously increased the connectivity between all the 10 Asian countries, and it has significantly helped in integrating their economies, making them leaders in the global manufacturing. So with the same objective, SAARC was established. So SAARC comprises India and its regional neighbors, right? All the countries which are part of the South Asian region. However, there is an imbalance between India and other small regional neighbors, and that has deviated the overall purpose of the SAARC. So still, these regional neighbors of India view India as a potential challenge. So because of all these factors combined with Chinese challenge has resulted in diminishing the regional leadership role, or diminishing India's overall influence in the region. And that has a key implications for overall South Asian geopolitics, And in fact, the Chinese rise or influence in the region has also been resulted in a potential implications for India. Now, what is impact of China's rise? So how China's rise actually impact India's overall influence in the region? So China's rise would lead to a shift in the regional balance of power. So regional balance of power tilted in favor of China instead of India. Now, if you look at China's growth, it is considered as an enormous growth of China. So along with the enormous growth of China, China has also been regularly increasing its influence in the Indian Ocean region and potentially challenging India as well. So therefore, Chinese ascent in South Asia actually coupled with US withdrawal from the region. Now, US has a very minimal presence in this Indo-Pacific region or the Indian Ocean region. So this vacuum created by USA is filled by China, and now China comes in close conflict with, or China comes in conflict with India. Okay, so this has been coupled with US withdrawal from the region and India's focus on the Indo-Pacific. So now it has the regional balance tilted in favor of China. So therefore, now most of the regional neighbors of India have adopted the strategies like balancing, bargaining, and hedging. So all these strategies or tactics that are followed by India's regional neighbors, we can observe, right, whether it is Sri Lanka or Maldives, Pakistan, or any other country in the region. However, increasing a growing Chinese presence certainly poses some challenges for India. Okay, so what are those challenges? So one such challenge is decline in India's regional leadership role, decline in India's influence in the region. So therefore, India must acknowledge the changing regional dynamics. So this is a reality now, and India must adopt a pragmatic foreign policy in this respect, that we must acknowledge and identify the changing regional dynamics in the South Asian region. And at the same time, we must focus on our strength, and we should also adopt the proactive policies to counter Chinese influence in the region. So the need is that first strengthen your capabilities and adopt the proactive policies to counter the Chinese influence, because Chinese influence, increasing Chinese influence in the region could potentially threaten India's overall influence in the South Asian region in the in the long term. So therefore, we must adopt the proactive policies. So that including engaging the maritime opportunities. So we regularly conducting the maritime exercises with different countries, strengthening our security forces, especially the naval forces, and revisiting the traditional conceptions of the region. And we must utilize our soft power. So we are known to build enormous soft power with different countries, and we must use that soft power diplomacy to counter Chinese influence in the region. So that is how we can counter the regional decline of India. So how can we utilize soft power and the adaptability? So how can we address and identify the regional dynamics? Now, what exactly is the soft power? So soft power is actually developing a sense of good things in the minds of other people. Okay, for example, Afghanistan, we have generated a lot of soft power among the people of Afghanistan and among the people of Africa, right? So how we have done this? Through infrastructure development, building schools, hospitals, and sending peacekeeping forces to those countries, trying to establish peace and stability in those countries, and building roads, railways, highways, and at the same time supporting the agriculture, livelihood opportunities, skilling the populations, and student exchange programs. So all these factors are actually part of the soft power of any country, and in this respect India had built a lot of soft power. For example, I can say yoga is part of a soft power, cricket is also part of a soft power, right? So developing positive sentiments in the minds of people in other countries is soft power. So that is what we must target to address or arrest this regional decline. Now, how can we utilize this soft power of India? So India must leverage our soft power, because see, we also have a huge diaspora across the world, and in fact diaspora is instrumental factor in demonstrating or effectively demonstrating our soft power in those countries. So therefore we must leverage the existing soft power through informal contacts and the conflict management initiatives. So they will help us retain our influence in the larger region. Okay, so not just within the region but beyond the region. And at the same time, we must foster the dialogue and cooperation among the political and civil society actors across South Asia. So through a regular dialogues, so through a regular high level exchanges, so we can improve our relations, we can arrest the regional decline of India, so we can further strengthen our soft power. So that will have a huge benefits for India in the long term. And even though it takes time to develop enormous soft power or leverage soft power, but it gives a lot of benefits in the long term. And at the same time, we must develop our adaptability capabilities, and at the same time we must also ink the external partnerships to deal with the regional challenges. So in fact, New Delhi's openness to engaging with the external partners, for example, I can tell you that we have launched Asia Africa Growth Corridor with the help of Japan. So the Asia Africa Growth Corridor is an alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative in the region, and it addresses the potential infrastructure shortages or shortcomings in Africa. So therefore we have been cooperating with Japan, another like-minded country which has been facing similar challenges, to address the infrastructure deficit of Africa. So therefore this indicates New Delhi's openness or India's openness to engage with the external partners, and at the same time we are looking at the region through a non-India lens. So not just look at the region from India's lens alone, you should also take into account the concerns of those smaller neighbors. So when you take into a consideration the concerns of those smaller neighbors, there is a probability that those countries would comes under the influence of India in the longer term, because that could develop enormous trust and mutual confidence. And at the same time, India should also respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of those countries. So we all aware about the Panchashil principles. So Panchashil principles are here one of the ideal way to decline or arrest the declining regional influence of India. So that is how we can address the dichotomy between global rise and regional decline that we have been observing right now. So the next important news article is with respect to the Sustainable Development Goals. So we all knew that United Nations in the year 2015 launched this Sustainable Development Goals. So there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 169 targets, and it is also aimed that we must achieve 17 sustainable goals by the year 2030. Please also understand the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations were built on the earlier success of Millennium Development Goals. So the targets of Millennium Development Goals were largely achieved. So after that we have launched a more ambitious global targets. Those are Sustainable Development Goals. So these sustainable development goals achievement by the year 2030 is very important, because the sustainable development goals have been covering or encompassing a mixture of social, economic, environmental and political aspects at the global level. And all these sustainable development goals are very important for environmental sustainability, biodiversity protection, and at the same time the inclusive development of all the countries and ensuring equity at the different levels, right? So these are 17 sustainable development goals outlined by the United Nations. Now please understand the context of this article. So the context is that United Nations Summit on the Sustainable Development Goals actually assessed the progress achieved in the Sustainable Development Goals, revealing that a slow progress and the need for urgent action. Okay, so it has been indicating that even though we have launched 17 ambitious sustainable development goals, the progress on the front of achieving these sustainable development goals across the world is slow. So therefore, we require to take an urgent action to immediately keep every country on track of achieving these sustainable development goals by the year 2030, because we are already in 2024 and still 6 more years left. However, if you look at these objectives or these goals, they are more ambitious. For example, no poverty is one such goal which is mentioned in sustainable development goals. But recently the COVID-19 pandemic has actually pushed millions of people into the poverty. And at the same time, it has also resulted in large scale unemployment for the people. So all these factors have further increased number of people in the poverty, but still we left 6 years, and how can we achieve no poverty goal by 2030? And after that, no hunger. So climate change has been significantly impacting the agriculture sector, and it has been associated with declining food grain production. And how can we achieve the food security, and how can we achieve the zero hunger by the year 2030 if we are not able to meet the existing climate challenges? Good health and well-being is also part of it. But there is a huge divide between the developed West and the developing countries in the South. So therefore, there is a requirement of a lot of cooperation and collaboration between all these different countries to achieve sustainable development goals or put the progress on track. So as of now, the progress is slowed down, and therefore we need to reorient ourselves. We need to focus on achieving these sustainable development goals. And in fact, the Agenda 2030, so this was adopted by United Nations General Assembly in 2015, identified 17 sustainable development goals with 169 specific targets to be achieved by 2030. Right? So slow progress, and what will be the major or key concerns? So one is inefficient progress or insufficient progress. Insufficient progress is primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that was done 2015 to 2019, insufficient progress in achieving all the sustainable development goals. So after that, we have seen the COVID-19 pandemic. So how devastating it was. We have observed prolonged lockdowns, and it has it has also created a lot of pressure on existing public healthcare system, and the entire economy of the world came to a standstill. We have observed economic recession, unemployment, and number of people pushed into the cycle of poverty. So all these factors have made that the sustainable development goals or the progress which is being achieved in the sustainable development goals is being erased. Okay, so therefore the COVID-19 pandemic and other global crises like Russia-Ukraine war and Israel-Palestine war, and recent crisis in the Red Sea. So all these factors have been impeding the progress on the front of sustainable development goals. And at the same time, deficiencies in goal pursuit is also another factor. Because if you look at the sustainable development goals, environment is one factor that has to be given adequate attention. Because there are goals like life below land, life on land, and life below water. Okay, so environment protection is one of the important and a key pillar of all these sustainable development goals, but very inadequate attention was given to environmental protection and biodiversity. So therefore, the current practice of pursuing SDGs actually failed to address the integrated and indivisible nature of these goals, and thereby posing challenges to the environmental sustainability. Remember that without environmental sustainability, so we cannot achieve these goals. So that is true. So environment sustainability is actually like a pillar, one of the key pillar in all these sustainable development goals, because now we have been observing climate change at a rapid pace, and climate change has been resulting in deforestation, decline in the agriculture productivity, decline in economic productivity, economic growth of these countries, because of events like heat waves. And at the same time, we have also observing the forest fires. Forest fires leads to the biodiversity loss, habitat fragmentation. So all these factors would ultimately impact every sustainable development goals. So therefore, we must focus on the protection and conservation of environment and biodiversity, because it is an integrated factor. Okay, so we have been observing the environmental degradation, the increased levels of environmental degradation in recent times. So the present trend, if continues, it will lead to accelerated environmental degradation, and the overall purpose of transitioning towards sustainability would be defeated, or we may not be able to achieve these sustainable development goals in the longer term. However, in this respect, urgent actions or recommendations were also provided by the author. So what are the recommendations that the author has provided? So there are certain key areas for action. Okay, so the UN Sustainable Development Goals Report 2023 has actually identified the certain areas, and we must focus on those areas for urgent action. So they including the commitments from the government side, because see, the political will and the commitment from the government is very, very important to achieve all the sustainable development goals. So if there is no political support or political will from the governments, it is very difficult to achieve these sustainable development goals. Now, when I say political will, the governments can take a concerted action and regularly monitor, track the progress that is being done in the sustainable development front. And at the same time, if we talk about the developed countries must assist all the developing countries and least developed countries through finances, and at the same time technology transfer. So that is how we can collaborate at the global level, and that is how we can achieve all these sustainable development goals across the world. See, here we need to remember the quote of Mahatma Gandhi. So he said that injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere. Right? So if developed countries don't support the developing countries in their transition to a green economy, or developed countries don't extend the technology support or finances to these developing countries, so that is an injustice that is being done on the part of these developing countries by developed countries. So therefore, injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere in the world. That is what the Mahatma Gandhi said in this respect. And after that, we must integrate the policies to eradicate poverty and reduce inequalities. So inequalities at the global level is one of the key concern, and India also, we have been observing the extreme levels of inequality, both regional inequalities, income inequalities, and even the gender inequalities. So we must address all these forms of inequalities to achieve the sustainable development goals. So they include regional inequalities, gender inequalities, as well as income inequalities. They have been posing a serious threat or serious challenges. And after that, we must also strengthen our national institutions. Capacities must be strengthened, and international cooperation is very, very important in this sense, because research, technology, finances can be done through the international cooperation, and also support for the UN development system to achieve all these sustainable development goals by the year 2030. Now we must also look for the election year considerations. So India is going for the Lok Sabha polls this year. So 18th Lok Sabha elections are taking place. So not just India, but several other countries including US and other countries have also going for the elections this year. So therefore 2024 marks elections in numerous countries globally, across the globe. So therefore that presents an opportunity for newly elected governments to align their national policies with these sustainability goals and address these environmental challenges. So this is what the author has been saying, that, and these are certain focused and priority areas to achieve all the sustainable development goals, and at the same time we must prioritize the environmental protection as well. So the next important article, so that is in news, is China has been building a road through Shaksgam Valley and India registered a protest. So this region which I am highlighting here is the Shaksgam Valley. So Shaksgam Valley is actually part of the Pakistan occupied Kashmir in 1963. Before 1963, this Shaksgam Valley was part of the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. However, in 1963, Pakistan ceded this territory to China. However, India registered a strong protest of this ceding Indian territory by Pakistan to China. So Pakistan ceded this territory, this Shaksgam Valley, in 1963 to China. Okay, so this is the region which is known as Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And at the same time, this is the region the China occupied India, or China occupied Kashmir. So Aksai Chin under the control of China, and this Shaksgam Valley was also ceded to China by Pakistan. Okay, so the line which is I'm highlighting here is the line of actual control, and this is line of control. Okay, so what is the context? So the context is that this Shaksgam Valley that I have highlighted here, so it is an area of Pakistan occupied Kashmir that Beijing has been acquired in 1963, and now China has been laying down or constructing a road that would link Muzaffarabad in Pakistan occupied Kashmir with Yarkand in Xinjiang via Mustag Pass. Okay, so again, since Pakistan occupied Kashmir is an integral part of India, so China laying down such a road is against the sovereignty of India, and therefore India strongly objected the construction of road by China in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which is an integral part of India. And in fact, this Shaksgam Valley is located 5,400 square kilometers north of Siachen. Okay, so you can see here, this is the Siachen Glacier, and Shaksgam Valley is located north of Siachen Glacier. So please understand, UPSC earlier asked a question with respect to the location of Siachen Glacier. So therefore, please understand the Shaksgam Valley and the location of the Siachen Glacier. And this Shaksgam Valley is part of the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And in fact, Pakistan ceded this Shaksgam Valley to Chinese with a strategic edge along the line of actual control. And in fact, this Shaksgam Valley actually provides a strategic edge for China along the line of actual control. Okay, so if we can talk about this Shaksgam Valley, it is part of India's territory because India clearly rejected the 1963 China-Pakistan boundary agreement. Through this boundary agreement, Pakistan ceded Shaksgam Valley to China. So that has allowed Pakistan to try illegally hand over the region to China. So India still consider this as an illegally handing over Indian territory to China. However, China unlawfully acquired this Saxgam Valley. So that is 5,180 square kilometers of Indian territory from Pakistan in 1963. Okay, so this is also known as the Trans-Karakoram Tract. So this Saxgam Valley is also known as Trans-Karakoram Tract. So it is a portion of Pakistan occupied Kashmir's Hunja Gilgit region. Okay, so this is the region which is known as Gilgit Baltistan, and this Saxgam Valley is a portion of Hunja Gilgit region in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And why China has been laying down a road in this Saxgam Valley? Because it may offer an alternative route to the Upper Saxgam Pass. So there was an Upper Saxgam Pass, and laying down road would offer an alternative route to the Upper Saxgam Pass, and which leads to the Karakoram Pass. See, these passes are actually facilitated trade and commerce, mobility and connectivity between different regions. So therefore these passes actually play a very important role. And at the same time, this road would also provide access to this Kunjerab Pass, which is located in the northern areas of the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So because of increased accessibility, increased connectivity and mobility, China has been illegally constructing a road through the Saxgam Valley. And in fact, the dominant features of this Saxgam Valley and the surrounding region are the K2 peak and also a lot of mountains and glaciers. So according to experts, the proposed route, it proposes a new border from Yarkand on Gilgit-Baltistan border, so with the Xinjiang in Uyghur Autonomous Region. So this is the region which is known as Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. This Xinjiang region is very, very important for China. Strategically, it is very, very important region for China. So therefore, because it would open a new supply lane from China to Pakistan forces deployed along the line of actual control. Okay, so that especially aimed at the military mobility, and it also helps the Pakistani military forces deployed across the line of control. And apart from that, there were also inputs which have been suggesting that the roads in this Saxgam Valley could be for the transporting minerals like uranium mined from the Gilgit-Baltistan to Xinjiang. So for this particular purposes, the road is being illegally constructed by China in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which is an integral part of India. So after that, we will talk about the Eta Aquarid meteor shower. So this is an important phenomenon that is being observed every year on the sky. So that is known as Eta Aquarid meteor shower. So the news article is that we will understand what exactly is this Eta Aquarid meteor shower, and it is said to light up the night sky in this weekend. Okay, so this has been originating from famous Halley's comet, and it is said to peak soon. Okay, so we said to observe this Eta Aquarid meteor shower. So this Eta Aquarid meteor shower is formed when Earth passes through the orbital plane of the Halley's comet. Okay, so when Earth has been passing through the orbital plane of this Halley comet, so this Aquarid meteor shower is being observed, and this is a periodic comet that orbits the sun every 76 years. And in fact, please understand, this is actually a celestial event and that occurs every year. And in fact, this Eta Aquarid meteor shower was first observed in 240 BCE, and the recurring appearance of this comet were elucidated or elaborated by astronomer Edmund Halley. So what are the characteristics? So the characteristics of Eta Aquarid meteor shower includes a burning space debris moving at a speeds of around 66 km per second. So they move at a speed of 66 km per second, and this eta Aquarid meteor shower is known for its rapid speed, and that resulting in long glowing tiles that can last for several minutes. And in fact, this spectacle is best visible in countries that are located in the southern hemisphere. They include Indonesia and Australia, because both Indonesia and Australia are located in the southern hemisphere. And association with it is also associated with other meteor showers similar to eta Aquarids. Orionid's meteor shower is also originates from the Halley's comet and occurs annually in October every year. Okay, so this is eta Aquarid meteor shower. Okay, so that's all in this lecture, and thank you. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. So we'll be coming up with next editorial and other important news article discussion in our next class. Thank you.